This is Unit 6 for pre-calc. This is the second half of Chapter 4. It's really sections 4.5 to 4.7. This is the review. I'm going to do numbers 1 through 4 on this video. So the first one, y equals 3 times sine of theta plus pi over 2. So amplitude is always a number in front of the trig functions. That's 3. Period is 2 pi, unless it is changed by the number in front of theta. It is not here, so it's just 2 pi. Changes, we're going to go left pi over 2 from the plus pi over 2 on the inside. All right, asymptotes, we'll get to those. Actually, asymptotes are none because it's a sine. So when I do this, whenever I move left or right, I always end up drawing out a regular graph. So I'm going to draw out a regular sine graph here, going up to 3, going down to -3. So here's my sine graph. All right, this is all the way out to 2 pi. So this is 0, pi, pi over 2, and 3 pi over 2. So again, this is just a sketch. And I do that because now I have to take this move to the left pi over 2. So when I go left pi over 2, I'm going to have to move that entire graph to the left. So I have to subtract off. So 0 minus pi over 2 is going to give me a negative pi over 2. All right, pi over 2 minus pi over 2 just gives me 0. Remember, that's the x value. So it's up here at 3 for the y, but the x value is over there. All right, my pi minus pi over 2 is going to give me pi over 2. All right, so that's my hill that I'm going to draw in for my sine. And then we have to draw in the valley. So 3 pi over 2 minus pi over 2 gives me pi down at the bottom. And it comes back up. 2 pi minus pi over 2 is going to give me 3 pi over 2. All right, so that is the graph for number 1. Number 2, y equals tangent of 1/2 theta. So when we go through and do this one again, we're going to look at amplitude. Amplitude here is going to be none. Amplitude is how high or how low the wave goes. There is not a wave function for tangent, so that's a none. Period is going to get changed here. It starts out as pi divided by 1/2, so really multiply by 2, so that's 2 pi. And my changes here are going to be none. Asymptotes we will have, but they will change. All right, so again, if you think about a regular tangent graph, here's my base graph for my tangent. You're going to have it coming up. It's like half a propeller. I've always called those propellers. So this is 0, this is pi over 2 where my asymptote is, and this is going to be pi. So remember what we said, whatever you do to the period, you do to the asymptote. So I multiplied it by 2, so I multiply these by 2, so that's going to be 0 and 2 pi. So when I graph this, what I'm really doing is I'm taking that graph and I'm stretching it out. All right, so my graph really just gets stretched out across 2 pi instead of 1 pi. So this is 2 pi, this is pi, that's 0. And that was my final answer for number 2. Number 3, negative cosine of 2 theta plus 3. So amplitude there is just going to be a 1. The period here is going to be pi. Take 2 pi divided by the 2. My changes are going to be a reflection for the x-axis because of the negative, and the plus 3 at the end is going to move this up 3. Asymptotes are none for cosine. All right, so when I draw this one, I'm going to draw an upside down cosine graph. That's going to be a little bit squished because of pi, and it's also moved up 3. So if I go up like 3, all right, that's now my new center line. Amplitude from that is 1, so I'm going up to 4, going down to 2. Again, amplitude goes from the new center line. So you go up and down first, in this case up 3, then I went up 1 from amplitude to 4 and down 1 to the 2. So my graph is going to be between 2 and 4 here. I need to draw an upside down cosine graph. All right, so when I do so, here's my upside down cosine graph. Technically, it should be squished, all right, to pi. We have 0, we have our pi. Middle here is going to be pi over 2. This is going to be pi over 4, and then this is 3 pi over 4. Next one, number 4, cotangent. We're taking cotangent going left 45. So amplitude here is again none, just like tangent. There is no wave function. Period is going to remain the normal one, that's pi. Changes are going to be left here, pi over 4. All right, asymptotes, remember when you do your cotangent graph, cotangent has an asymptote at 0 and a pi. All right, so now I'm going to subtract pi over 4, or 1/4 from each one of those when I do my actual graph here. All right, so when I do so, 0 minus pi over 4, it puts me at negative pi over 4. All right, that's my first asymptote there. All right, pi minus pi over 4 puts me at 3 pi over 4. It's my second asymptote. All right, so I can fill those in now. Negative pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4. And then my pi over 2, 1/2 minus 1/4 puts me at 1/4. That's going to be right here. Notice it's on the positive side of the y-axis here. Pi over 4. And now you just draw it in. Remember, when you draw it in, those lines should not intersect the asymptotes.